Hello and welcome back. I want to ask you something before we begin. How has your preparation been holding up this week? There is a strange mix of excitement and quiet pressure that comes with getting ready for an examination that can shape the entire course of your life. And if you are feeling both of those things right now, you are exactly where you should be. This is the Sociology Desk issue 94. And today, we are working through two current events that you can turn directly into high scoring answers for your sociology optional. One is about a stalled constitutional promise to women in parliament, and the other is about how a government can quietly hollow out reservation without touching the constitution at all. Let us get into it. Our first event sits in paper 2 under politics and society in the part of the syllabus dealing with nation, democracy, and citizenship. It is built around a very public argument this week between the Maharashtra Chief Minister and a senior Congress leader over why women still do not have their promised 33% reservation in parliament and state assemblies, even though the constitutional amendment was passed back in 2023. The first concept you need here comes from T.K. Oommen, and it is the distinction between formal citizenship and substantive citizenship. Formal citizenship simply means you legally hold a status, a right written into the Constitution. Substantive citizenship means you can actually use that right in your daily life. Women in India now formally hold the right to a reserved legislative seat. But because the amendment made that right conditional on a fresh census and a delimitation exercise, not one extra woman has entered a legislature because of it 3 years later. That gap between the paper right and the lived right is exactly what Oommen's distinction was built to explain, and it is the single most important move you can make in an answer on this topic. Now, here is the doubt you should be having at this point. If delimitation does eventually happen, is the problem solved? Not necessarily, and this is where Robert Michels becomes useful. Michels argued that any organization, however democratic it claims to be, tends over time to fall under the control of an entrenched minority. Apply that to Indian quota politics and you get a real warning. Because we have already seen in Panchayati Raj institutions that a reserved seat can go to a woman on paper while a male relative continues to make every decision. So a strong answer does not stop at celebrating the quota. It also asks whether the quota can be captured from within. Let me give you a formulation you can actually write in your answer sheet. As T.K. Oommen argued in Citizenship, Nationality and Ethnicity, formal legal membership of the state does not automatically translate into the substantive enjoyment of the rights that membership confers. If you write that sentence, attribute it correctly, and then apply it to the stalled women's reservation case, you have already done more theoretical work than most of the room. Now let me speak to you as an examiner for a moment. An answer that scores around 14 out of 20 on this question usually does one thing. It narrates the political argument in great detail, treats it as the topic itself, and mentions reservation only in passing. An answer that scores 18 or 19 does something completely different. It opens with the formal versus substantive citizenship distinction, not with a definition of reservation. It uses the political exchange in only 1 or 2 sentences, purely as evidence. It brings in Michels as a counter-perspective to show the quota is not automatically a solution. And it closes by looking forward, saying what would actually need to happen for citizenship to become substantive. Remember this always. The current event is your evidence. The theory is your destination. That single habit is what separates a topper's script from an average one. Here is a question you should practice from this event. In light of the continuing political contestation over the implementation of legislative reservation for women, critically examine the distinction between formal and substantive citizenship in Indian democracy. Give yourself 25 minutes and write it exactly as we just discussed. Our second event moves us to paper 1, into works and economic life, specifically the social organization of work in industrial capitalist society. This week, the Congress president accused the government of ending reservation through the back door, pointing out that vacant posts in the central government have roughly doubled between 2015 and 2024, and that permanent jobs in public sector undertakings are steadily being replaced by contract labor. The anchor concept here is Karl Marx's Reserve Army of Labor. Marx argued that capitalism does not simply employ workers, it also maintains a surplus pool of insecure, replaceable workers alongside them. That surplus pool disciplines the wages and the bargaining power of everyone else, because anyone who pushes too hard for better conditions knows they can be replaced. When you see permanent government jobs converted into contract positions, you are watching this mechanism operate in real time, inside the Indian state itself. But do not stop at Marx, because a purely economic reading misses something important. Bring in B.R. Ambedkar's idea of constitutional morality, the idea that a right written into the Constitution is worthless without the institutional will to actually enforce it. Vacancy and contractualization quietly defeat reservation without anyone ever amending a single article. And Dipankar Gupta adds a necessary caution here. Do not treat this as simply a generic labor class problem, because the burden falls specifically on scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, and other backward class aspirants whose constitutional entitlement was attached to that exact reserved post. Here is your quotable line for the answer sheet. As Karl Marx argued in Capital, capitalism continuously produces a relative surplus population that functions as a lever for the accumulation of wealth and the discipline of the employed workforce. Learn that sentence, attribute it to Marx and to Capital correctly, and you have your opening theoretical move ready for this question. Again, think like the examiner. A 14-mark answer here usually just repeats the vacancy figures and calls it labor informalization in general terms. A 19-mark answer opens with reservation operating through the filled post, not the legislated guarantee, uses the vacancy and contractualization numbers in barely a sentence as evidence, brings in Marx's Reserve Army of Labor as the main theoretical engine, and then uses Ambedkar and Gupta together to show that this is not just an economic story, but a specifically constitutional and caste story. That last move, refusing to let caste dissolve into class, is usually what pushes a script from a good answer into a very good one. Try this question for practice. In light of the reported rise in vacant government posts and the growth of contractual employment in public sector undertakings, critically examine Marx's concept of the Reserve Army of Labor. Write it in the format we just walked through. Let us bring it together. From the first event, remember Oommen's distinction between formal and substantive citizenship, and Michels' warning that quotas can still be captured by entrenched power. From the second event, remember Marx's Reserve Army of Labor, sharpened by Ambedkar's constitutional morality and Gupta's insistence that caste cannot be reduced to class. And across both, remember the one habit that actually moves your score. Use the current event only as evidence in 1 or 2 sentences, and spend the rest of your answer doing theory. That is our brief for today. I want to leave you with this thought. Preparing for this examination is a long and often draining road, and the aspirants who actually make it are rarely the ones who feel most inspired on any single day. They are the ones who simply show up again tomorrow, and the day after that, even when it feels ordinary. That quiet consistency is the real secret here. If you would like the complete answer blocks, model answers, and flashcards that go with everything we discussed today, drop your email in the comments or write to us at team@upscdesk.com, and our team will